We're Santa's little helpers, we make the wheels go round.
Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles, and it's premium tank review time on day 24 of the Wargaming Advent Calendar, and this, the M46 Pattern Korea, is the tank that I almost got myself into serious trouble with Wargaming over by releasing the video the day early. I almost put this video up yesterday, the day before the tank became available on the Advent Calendar. That would have been bad. But I remembered just in time. And yes, I am supposed to be taking my Christmas break, but Wargaming keep releasing new tanks and new ships and new game modes, and oh god, they just don't want me to have any time off, do they? Well, anyway, here it is, the M46 Pattern Korea. Premium Tier 8 American medium tank with a very, very unique and historical camouflage skin. You can see a couple of examples of the paint scheme, obviously in a much more presentable and clean version, here at the US Army Heritage and Education Center at Carlisle Barracks. So, what is the M46 Pattern Korea, and is it any good? Because it doesn't look much like an M46, does it? It looks more like the M26 Pershing, and that's because the M46 Pattern basically was an M26 Pershing, except with a new gun and a new engine. And it does look an awful lot like a completely stock M46 Pattern. And, well, that's because the M46 Pattern that we actually have in World of Tanks as the Tier 9 medium is the M46 Pattern in its stock configuration, but when you put that upgraded turret on it, which was a turret designed for the T-42 heavy tank, which never saw realisation, that then in effect becomes the M47 Pattern. So at Tier 9 you've got two tanks for the price of one. Anyway, let's get this review rolling. So, the M46 Pattern Korea is basically an upgraded M26 Pershing with an improved power plant and a redesigned 90mm gun. And there you can see a comparison between the best 90mm gun on the M26 Pershing at Tier 8, over there on the left. In the centre, the 90mm gun on the M46 Korea. And on the right, the stock 90mm M3 gun on the Tier 9 M46. And there's not an awful lot to choose between them, particularly between the Pattern Korea and the Pershing's gun. The stock 90mm gun on the M46 Tier 9 definitely loses out in standard ammunition penetration, but better rate of fire, better aiming time. Accuracy is very, very similar all across the board. Where the M26 Pershing's gun does stand out, however, is in its premium ammunition penetration, which is significantly better than both of its competitors. So that's the Pershing and the Pattern Korea's guns compared to the stock M3 90mm gun on the Tier 9 Pattern. How about the best 90mm gun? Not the 105mm gun, which is the final gun you unlock on the M46 at Tier 9, but the best 90mm gun available on the Tier 9. And you know what? They don't actually compare too badly at all either. The aiming time is better, the rate of fire is a little better, the accuracy is marginally better, the premium penetration is a lot better, but the standard credit armor-piercing penetration is actually 2mm worse. There's not really a massive amount of difference between these two guns, and don't forget, one of them is the best 90mm gun available on a Tier 9 medium. So we can pretty safely say that the Pattern Korea has a pretty good gun, and so does the M26 Pershing for that matter, because the guns are very, very similar. And if further proof were needed, have a look at the damage per minute of the three tanks. 1756 on the M26 Pershing. The Pattern Korea has a slightly faster rate of fire, so it gets a marginal improvement in its damage per minute, and same again with the M46 Pattern at Tier 9. Slightly better rate of fire, slightly better damage per minute, but again, very, very consistent across all three tanks. So how about mobility? How do the three tanks compare there? Well, if you have a look at the power-to-weight ratio, the M26 Pershing is no slouch. It's a very mobile Tier 8 medium tank, and it has a power-to-weight ratio of just over 16 horsepower per ton. However, the two major differences between the M26 and the M46 were the gun and a vastly improved power plant. So the M46 Korea has a power-to-weight ratio of 18.22 horsepower per ton, so it is a more mobile tank. Now, those of you who are grinding your way down this American medium tank line and throwing your hands up in despair at the news that, well, so far the Tier 9 M46 isn't that much better than its predecessors at Tier 8, don't worry. It does have a better power-to-weight ratio, even fully upgraded with the T-42 turret and the 105mm gun. It's not that much better, however. It's just over 19 horsepower per ton. Comparing the general stats of all three tanks side by side, and don't worry, the Tier 9 M46 is going to come ahead, although in its fully upgraded configuration, technically it's the M47 Pattern. It is going to come ahead, and so it should. It's a fully upgraded Tier 9 medium tank after all, But again, there's not an awful lot to choose from in certain categories between these three tanks. The top speed of all three is more or less exactly the same. The traverse speed is exactly the same on all three, 38 degrees per second. The hull armour is exactly the same on all three tanks. There are some minor differences in the thickness of the turret armour, but both the M26 and the M46 Korea have very, very good gun mantlets, and the differences in the Tier 9 M46 is mainly down to the shape of the gun turret. The turret traverse on all three is very, very good, 38 degrees per second on the pattern Korea in the M26 and 40 degrees per second on what we're going to call the M47 from here on in, just to differentiate between the three, up there at Tier 9. The view range, the pattern Korea actually comes last, but it doesn't come last by much. It has 390 meters, the M26, 400, and the M47 at Tier 9, 410. And of course they all have exactly the same signal range on their radios, 745 meters. So what you've got here at Tier 8 as a premium M46 version of the M46 at Tier 9 is actually a very, very competitive tank that is easily as good as the M26 Pershing, and like the M26 Pershing, almost as good as the M46 pattern at Tier 9. One thing that you need to be aware of about this tank, and which is likely to send some of you into a panic, is that you cannot paint this tank. You cannot apply the seasonal camouflage patterns to this machine. That camouflage scheme, the tiger stripes that comes with the tank, you're stuck with it whether you like it or not. Now, before you panic and write letters to your Member of Parliament complaining that you can't get that 3% environmental camo bonus on this premium tank, it is, while I can't state for certain because we've asked this question of Wargaming but we haven't actually received a reply yet, it is very, very likely to be like the Wargaming League Grand Final version of the AMX 1357, which also has a non-negotiable camo pattern. But this premium tank camo pattern works in exactly the same way as the three different seasonal or environmental camo patterns that you can pay for to be applied to your tank. So what you're effectively likely to be getting here, again I must say likely because I haven't received a clear answer from Wargaming on this subject yet, but what you are likely to be getting here is effectively free 3% camo rating on this tank in all environments. So, what's it like to play? Oh, the Serene Coast map. Okay, it's a Tier 9 battle, but I'm in a mobile American medium with a bouncy gun mantlet, good gun depression, and good mobility, so I know exactly where I'm taking this tank in this match. Serene Coast has got one of these maps that just seems to be made for American medium tanks. This little ridge line over here in the top northeastern corner of the map is absolutely fantastic for the kind of tanks that have good mobility, good gun depression, and bouncy gun mantlets. Okay, I was a little bit too enthusiastic at the start there, overextended and took a hit from the T-54 Mod 1, but I got a shot into him as well. Tanks like the Centurions, both the Mark 1, the Mark 7 and the Action 10, excel in this kind of situation. The Comet as well, very, very good in this kind of situation. Almost all of the American mediums and some of the American heavies. Not too sure about the Yag Tigers, however. Well, then again, you know, I suppose it works. SU-101s? Definitely not. No, 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 no. Wrong place to be positioning that kind of machine. Terrible gun depression and easily penetrated lower glacis, which you have to expose when you're coming over a hill like that. But this is the exact sort of situation where a tank like the M46 pattern Korea can absolutely excel. And this was shaping up to be a pretty damn good match. But there's always somebody who has to spoil the fun, isn't there? Wargaming, remind us, why is artillery in the game? To discourage people from camping. Oh right, okay. Oh well, let's try again. Only this time with less camping at the back of the map. Disclaimer, this is the first time I've ever seen this map. This is the new Czech map, Pilsen, and by sheer luck, I'd like to say it was skill and map knowledge, but it wasn't. By sheer luck, I actually managed to find what is possibly, I don't know, this is the only part of the map I've ever seen so far, what is possibly the best part of the map for fighting in a tank with these kind of characteristics, much like the previous position on the Serene Coast map. This is a lovely spot for medium tanks with bouncy gun mantlets, and this thing does have a bouncy gun mantlet, and good gun depression. Initially I thought those guys over there on the left in that factory complex might have some nasty flanking shots into us, but well, if that's the case, you can always go down into the lower ground there on that track that runs in that sort of ditch. Although, obviously, you have to, you know, take the rough with the smooth, because that is then going to make you more vulnerable to fire from the front, but you can't have it all. I haven't actually managed to hit anything yet, by the way. You've doubtless noticed this. I mean, I didn't say I was any good. I just said that this was a good position for these kind of tanks. Oh, and he ducked back. Although I did hit him. I think I just blew his tracks off. He ducked back just as I fired, but then I think he inched forward again, and so the shot clipped him. Well, I don't want to get shot at by those guys on the flank in the factories over there, so instead I'm going to stick to the low ground in this little road, checking that he can't hit me. He can't, and make it around, and support this IS-3. Oh, did you see what I did there? Checking that he can't hit me? Yeah? No? I'll get me cut. Very surprised I managed to penetrate the turret of that IS-3, although I suppose I did hit him at the rear of the turret. Oh, here we go. Gun mantlet test. Yep, gun mantlet passes the 122mm BL9 test, and he's dead. Okay. Oh, what's that? Panzer IVS. Pop one into him. And only just managed to ninja the kill. 2.5 second aiming time is... well, it's not slow. If you want a slow aiming time, have a look at some of the Russian 122mm guns, but it could be better. Let's just leave it at that. And that's why we were no longer taking fire from the flank. The IS-6 and Skoda T40 have been forced to turn around and defend themselves. So a sneaky shot into the Skoda, and then an even sneakier shot, and oh! And once again, I get punished by the artillery for daring to camp at the front of the map, so... artillery discouraging medium tanks from camping at the front of the map since 2011. But did you see that shot at the IS-6? Now, it didn't do any damage, but it hit him and it blew his tracks off. And I was moving. This tank appears, and again, it's not exactly as if I've subjected this thing to rigorous testing, but I have noticed that this tank seems to be almost as good at firing on the move if you've fitted a vertical stabilizer, which you will if you're going to get one of these American high-tier mediums. But it almost seems to be as good at firing on the move as it is at firing at a target fully aimed and stationary. And again, what's this? And you'll see another example in this same replay. I am going to take a hit here, of course. The IS-6 has managed to turn around, and bang, there we go. Try and get myself hulled down behind this bit of rubble, only giving my turret a shoot out, and plant another one into his lower glacis. And fires into the gun mantlet, takes the gun out. I've now got a damaged gun. I've already used the repair kit, so the gun's going to stay damaged. I've got to get around this guy. He hits me again. The tracks eat it this time. And for the kill... oh crap, it bounced. Run away! Oh well. But if you were to ask me what my overall impression of this machine was, the first thing I'd say would be very, very good mobility, even if the top speed is nothing special. But the gun handling, and again, I must stress, it's not as if I've subjected this thing to rigorous scientific testing, but it does leave the impression, much like the old M48 pattern, the TN10 medium, when it was first introduced, of being just as good. And again, hit the Jagdtiger 88, even if I didn't penetrate it. But while on the move at full speed, with a vertical stabilizer fitted, this is a very, very good tank at firing on the move and consistently, more often than not, hitting the target. This is the kind of tank that I really, really like. It's a mobile medium with decent armour in the right place, the gun mantlet, with a rapid firing gun. If it had had the 105mm gun, I don't think it would have worked as well, because at tier 8, a 105mm gun, the rate of fire just wouldn't have been good enough. You wouldn't have been able to capitalise on the mobility, get around the sides and rear of bigger, heavier targets and just hit them over and over and over again. Keep them tracked. With the 90mm, or maybe even a 100mm gun, like you get on the Soviet tanks, you've got the rate of fire to capitalise on the kind of chances that you can create for yourself to exploit the weaknesses of bigger, heavier targets. It just wouldn't have really worked. I'm quite happy with the rate of fire of the 90mm gun. It's better than the rate of fire on the Pershing, which is the other tier 8. Not by much, but every little helps, particularly when you're trying to circle strafe a T-34, for example, and you need to keep him permanently tracked so you can beat his turret traverse. Putting a bigger gun on this thing would have just turned it into an American version of that awful, what's it called? That French M4 Sherman with the 105mm. The Ravioli or something, I don't know, it's something French. I like the 90mm gun on this machine. It's the right gun for the tank. It's the right gun for a tank with these kind of characteristics. I just wish there were more maps that you could exploit the maneuverability and the mobility of this machine in order to get around bigger, slower and heavier opponents. Himmelsdorf, obviously, definitely not ideal territory on which to be playing this machine. But even on the maps with open ground, Wargaming seems to be leaning towards map design that basically the maps are turning into disguised corridor shooters, where, yeah, sure, there's open ground, but most of it's a killing zone, and you have to basically stick to the same kind of avenues of approach, which really does limit the effectiveness, I feel, of mobile mediums like the M46 Patton Korea. It's even worse if you're in a light tank, of course, but that's a completely different matter. Anyway, back to the game. Have a look at the map. Have a look at that road that runs north-south underneath the hill on which we're currently fighting. Yep. We had 2 tanks there, and they both died. And that is a lot of enemy armour steaming south right down our end of the map, underneath this castle. It's not looking too good, is it? And that's when the IS-6 decides to commit suicide. I'm not entirely sure how he thought he was going to come out of this one alive. He was actually in a pretty good position until he just threw it away. And I'm certainly not complaining, because it's free damage, free credits, and free experience. So, hurrah. We've won the hill. Unfortunately, yeah, that is a whole bunch of heavy armour steaming straight into our cap circle. So I was pretty much convinced that this one was going to be a resounding defeat, so let's just get as much damage done as possible while we can. Nope, go for the IS-3. And there's one. And he's taken another hit from my teammate up here. And there's another one. And if I want to get any more shots into anything, I'm going to have to get down the hill. Now, the rest of the team are reacting, a little slowly, but they are reacting, and they're coming back to try to fight the enemy tanks in the cap. But one of them is a Type 4 Heavy, the Tier 9 Japanese monster. And I'm in a Tier 8 medium. So, oh great. I might have to actually start loading the premium ammunition. But hang on a second, I can get a shot at this Borsig. Yep, I can. He's going to get away alive. Should I go down the road after him? Maybe not with a Waffenträger Panzer IV at the other end of the road, so yeah, okay. Let's see what... Well, then again... Surely he's not... Oh, he is. Okay, I did get to kill the Borsig, so hooray! Of course, there's only 5 of us left. Oh, no. There's only 4 of us left. Oh, fantastic. And there's that Type 4 Heavy. And I am not going to penetrate this guy with standard ammunition. Not with 192mm of penetration. So load the gold. And give me a side shot, please. Please. Pretty please. Side of the tank. Do it for your Uncle Jingles. There's the Waffenträger. Oh, there he is. And I've got the side of the tank. And pull back because he has a really, really big gun. And I do not have a lot of armour. Am I going to get a second shot? I am. Trying to track him. Not good enough. There's only 3 of us left. And you'll notice that of the 3 of us, actually of the 2 of us that are left, the reason we keep dying here is because none of us are supporting each other. And so every time one of us runs into an enemy tank, it's never just one enemy tank, it's 2 or 3 enemy tanks. So we've got no chance of winning here. But you see this happen all too often, when one team's on the back foot and they're suddenly outnumbered and things are going downhill, and oh, there's the Waffenträger, and I managed to put a shot into him. But surely the Waffenträger is going to be turning his gun around. Well, you'd think so, wouldn't you? But no. So I'll put another shot into him. And why the hell not? And he's still not turning his gun around. But you can bet that that Type 4 Heavy will be coming to try to finish me off as well. So let's get out of here. And yes, I realise I was firing a PCR at the Waffenträger, but you have to understand that my frame of mind at the time, as I put a shot into this Jagdtiger, oh, I really didn't need that, but my frame of mind at the time I was actually playing this was something like this. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. Blow the tracks off the Jagdtiger, try to buy me some time, but he uses a repair kit, and he comes around, and I'm going to take a hit here. I managed to score another one, and then the Waffenträger shoots one into my tracks. I'm the last one left alive on my team, with a Jagdtiger in front of me and a Waffenträger behind me, so that's my excuse for panicking. I have no idea what this Jagdtiger's excuse was. I was dead, but he let me get around him. I can actually kill this guy now before they put me down. Come on, reload, reload. Yeah, got him. There's an AT-15 in front of me, and the Waffenträger's going to be coming around, but did you see that? I took a bounce from the rear. That was the Type 4 Heavy. There he is. With his monster 150mm gun, bounced off the rear of this tank. So that was a horrible defeat. Well, actually, it wasn't a horrible defeat. It was actually a pretty good defeat. I did over 3,000 damage, mostly thanks to the horrific facepalm from the Yak Tiger at the end there, but more than anybody else on our team, and exactly the same amount of damage as the Type 4 heavy Japanese Tier 9 heavy tank on the enemy team. And despite the fact that I fired a fair amount of premium ammunition and am not running a premium account on this test account, actually made a profit. And that, at the end of the day, is why people get these Tier 8 premium tanks. They're ridiculously good money makers. With the premium account, that would have been just short of 100,000 credits earned. If we'd won, don't forget that was on a defeat, if we'd won, I probably would have seen around about 150,000 credits out of that match. Of course, in order to earn that kind of money in a Tier 8 premium, and while it's very, very difficult to actually lose money in a Tier 8 premium, you really have to work hard to lose money in one of these tanks. But in order to make a great amount of money in this tank, you have to be capable of at least doing moderately well. And you can definitely at least do moderately well in the M46 Pattern Korea. It is a very, very good Tier 8 medium. In fact, you know, it might even be a little bit too good. But, well, you've seen the evidence, you be the judge. The M46 Pattern Korea, available today, the 24th of December, Christmas Eve, in the Wargaming World of Tanks Advent Calendar. And I have no doubt that this tank is going to be very, very popular, because it is a very good machine. And even if you don't manage to catch it in time for Christmas, I'm pretty sure Wargaming will be selling this tank again at some point in the future. But for now, if you want to get this thing early, get it today. You probably won't regret it. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you all have a great Christmas. And at some point, I am actually going to get to take my Christmas break. This was supposed to be the last video that I did before I took my Christmas and New Year holiday. Unfortunately, Wargaming seem intent on disrupting my schedule. They keep showering us with new things. There is, of course, also debuting today the collaboration between World of Warships and Arpeggio of Blue Steel. So there's new ships for me to look at in World of Warships as well, and I will have to do a video on those. But I promise, I am actually going to take some time off over Christmas. Regardless of when I eventually get around to doing it, I hope you all have a great Christmas and a very safe and prosperous New Year. Take care, folks, and I will catch you at some point in the not too distant future.